This lunchtime from 1.
The Sound.
The sound of Cumbria.
Mike Zeller at breakfast.
BBC Radio Cumbria.
21 minutes to 8 now. Let's talk about the cost of living, because we had the news yesterday that inflation has dropped to its lowest level in 2.5 years. But we're probably not feeling much of a benefit. After all, food prices, they are still going up, just not as quickly as before. Cumbria's food banks are continuing to help some people feed themselves and their families, and BBC Radio Cumbria's Hannah Mitchell has been to visit one.
Cornerstone in Carlisle is a lively community cafe run by St James's Church and staffed by volunteers. It's also a community food bank. I'm here to meet manager Andy Blake.
So our food bank is open Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday and Friday, and it's for emergency food parcels, and we get referrals from like the social services and care workers, support workers, but we also accept walk-ins, so people will come in and say, look, I'm struggling, I've got no food, got no money, can I have some help? Over the last 6 months we've given out about 250 food parcels and we've fed near to 600 people now. So a typical food parcel will include either tea or coffee, and we'll tend to ask, what's your preference? We'll give them some long life milk, some cereal, and then they'll get a couple of meals. So it could be some pasta and some sauce, some meat with some veg, some tins of soup, they'll get some rice pudding, as well as a few toiletries in there. So they get enough to last them for a few days while they're sorting out the situation that they're in. Going back a few years, probably before COVID, we were always inundated with food. People were very generous, but certainly more recently, we've noticed that has declined. We're relying more on applying for grants to try and keep the food bank going, and that's, I think, because everyone's struggling.
It was recently announced that inflation had fallen to its lowest level in 2.5 years, driven largely by slowing food price rises. Also announced was a fall in the price of a handful of household items and food, including meat, crumpets and chocolate biscuits. I wanted to know how much of an impact Andy thought this might have on people using the food banks, particularly when these price drops were accompanied by prices rising elsewhere.
Yeah, when these announcements are made, although there might be savings on crumpets, we're not seeing much of a difference to people who hear. In fact, there was conversations going on with some of our customers this morning about are our benefit rates going up or down, and how can we afford things with the various cost increases and stuff that are going on. So donations of food have dropped off, but the demand is still there.
Andy Blake, the manager of the Cornerstone Community Cafe and Food Bank in Carlisle, having a word with Hannah Mitchell. Well, let's hear this morning on BBC Radio Cumbria from another part of the county. Matthew Burden is the project manager at Barrow Food Bank. Morning, Matthew. Bearing in mind what we heard from Andy there, is it a similar picture in Barrow? Are you still helping plenty of people?
Yeah, it's a very similar picture to what Andy's painted there.
Give us an idea of maybe the numbers of people, or the increase in the numbers of people that you've seen over recent times.
So last month we helped to feed 566 people, of which 264 were children. If we go back to March of last year, it was 401 people, 240 of which were children. So there has been an increase overall.
Do you think people will feel any difference at all with these price drops in certain items, or do the increases simply overwrite any decreases which might come our way?
Well, in terms of crumpets are pretty much a luxury item, and for a lot of the people that we help to feed, they don't have a toaster, so even if crumpets were free, it wouldn't make a massive difference to the experience of those people.
Are there particular items that you see people struggling with more than others? I mean, I know you say there crumpets, they're deemed as being a bit of a luxury item. Anything else, though?
Well, we also see people struggling with things like nappies, with toiletries, with cleaning products. If you can't afford food, you probably can't afford quite a lot of other things.
All right, Matthew, good to have you on. Good to get your take from the south of the county on this particular story. That's Matthew Burden, project manager at the Barrow Food Bank. You can get lots of cost of living tips and advice on the BBC News website. And if you're worried about your financial situation, you can contact your local Citizens Advice branch. There are offices in every part of Cumbria.